Everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
I said shake, rattle and roll. I said shake, rattle and roll. I said shake, rattle and roll.
And we're back. This is Experts on Call on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're talking about earthquake insurance. And joining us in the studio from Intact Insurance is Patrick Magnuson, along with Andrew Tablotny of Laguerre Pelling Insurance. And Bill Adams joins us on the phone today from Edmonton. Bill is the Vice President of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Now, gentlemen, we've had a great discussion here so far today, and there's been a lot of stories in the news of late giving us some really sobering information about just how many buildings in Vancouver are at a major risk should the big one hit the West Coast. And that includes hospitals. You know, we learned of the fate of St. Paul's. They're actually undertaking a massive seismic upgrading. VGH is in trouble, iconic churches. It's just been in the news recently. However, what can we actually do with our own homes? Like, how can we turn that information into a way to help us out in our own homes, to upgrade our homes? Are there certain things we can do to make us more safe at home?
You can do an earthquake retrofit of your home. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on that one. There's probably a whole other show that you could do regarding that. But there are companies that they basically specialize in that, and depending on the age of your home and the structure of it, they can put in crib walls, or I think they bolt your foundation, or they do a few different interesting things to help, protect your home from that devastating shake damage that can happen within an earthquake. I can't speak to the cost, but I'm sure that's as simple as Googling it, and you'd be able to find out quite a bit more information that I can provide.
And just finding a renovator in your area that could do it. Somebody credible.
And that's something I don't think a lot of people realize, that building codes have changed so significantly. A lot of homes, like even my own, built in the 70s, they're not strapped down to the foundation. So if you have a major quake, your house is going to bounce off. So the question is, will you be able to put it back on, or will it, by bouncing off, does it just totally collapse? So these, again, that the retrofits are something you can look at if you're going to go to that extreme.
So we talked a little bit earlier about purchasing earthquake insurance if you don't have it, or at least talking to your broker to find out if you have it and what you're covered for and what you're not. Is this something you would compare to, say, life insurance?
I guess I would, because life insurance is a hard sell, and because people don't want to deal with death. They don't want to look at their own mortality. So, but we buy it. We buy life insurance, we buy disability insurance, we buy critical illness insurance. At some point, we bite the bullet and say, yeah, I'll face my mortality. But I think the same issue is happening with earthquake. People are saying, well, as Bill says, it won't happen in the next 50 years. Well, it's going to happen. We don't know. We don't know when we're going to die. That's why we buy life insurance. So we know there's going to be an earthquake. Why aren't we buying earthquake? Why are those 35 to 45% people not buying earthquake? Because they just think it's not going to happen, or to them, well, it's going to happen. And we need to wrap our head around that fact and look at what our exposure is and deal with it.
We talked a little earlier about some of the statistics about the percentage of people in British Columbia or in the Lower Mainland. And Patrick, can you reiterate those statistics again of how many of us do or don't have earthquake insurance?
I think it was around 55 to 65% of folks living within Vancouver and the Lower Mainland do have earthquake insurance. So good for them.
And I think Bill reiterated that it was 55% in the province, but
probably around 40% in the province.
In the province.
But, much different exposure in the province where I live in Kelowna. It's not the same kind of exposure, so I would expect to see a much lower take-up rate there.
So how do we get this message out to the public? How do we, I know we're starting the conversation here and now, but how do we bring those naysayers into the program?
It hasn't been a lack of trying by brokers. We've been, as I say, we've been just having this conversation for 5 years, and our customers, they either believe us or they don't believe us, and that's the problem. Is they don't think it's going to happen.
So when a client comes in and talks to you about buying a homeowner policy, if they've just purchased their first home, do you bring up the question of earthquake insurance, or do they?
Well, as a broker, you provide them with all the options. You look at their total exposure, whether it be their jewelry or their artwork, and earthquake is just one other item that they need to be aware of. So, unfortunately, people look at it, as a major expense. But in the scheme of things, when you're talking $600 or $700 to insure $1 million or $1.5 million worth of building and contents, that's pretty cheap insurance, really. compared to the U.S., where they pay some huge premiums down there, and they're capped at how much they can buy. We actually are in a pretty good shape for what we can buy and the cost involved.
I believe in San Francisco, I think the average, and I'm using average in a obviously this is
A loose term.
a very loose term, but the average cost of insurance, earthquake insurance, is around $3,000. In Vancouver, Lower Mainland, it's probably closer to $900 for the same kind of home. Again, that's going to depend on how much your home is valued at, where you live, what your deductible is, what coverage options you choose. So there's a lot of variables within that price. Don't get scared away by a number. You got to remember that you're buying insurance to protect basically your biggest asset, which is your home.
That's right.
So why would you just pick just insuring it for fire or just insuring it for, I don't know, wind? I mean, why not have earthquake as well? I mean, yeah, kind of dodging a bullet on that one in my mind.
Add it to the whole package, right?
Exactly.
And one of the reasons that we had Bill Adams join us today is because, Bill, the Insurance Bureau of Canada just concluded a major study about this topic. What can you share with us and summarize some of the results?
Well, from our perspective, obviously insurance is it really is a risk transfer mechanism. You transfer a risk that you and your family face to an insurance company in exchange for a certain amount of premium. It is really a significant, but only one piece of the broad culture of preparedness that I spoke about earlier. We need to understand that the risk of a major earthquake hitting the West Coast is going to provide a level of damage that will be unprecedented in Canadian history and in the experience of anybody that's affected directly or indirectly. So we need to create that culture of preparedness that looks both at the physical preparedness of the province and of individuals, as well as the financial preparedness. As part of the financial preparedness, insurance is a significant cornerstone of that, to make certain that when it happens, you and your family get back to a normal life as quickly as possible, because it's been demonstrated around the globe that people with insurance recover more quickly and get back to the normal life than those, obviously, who are not. This is about culture preparedness and realizing that you need to start that long before the ground starts shaking. We all have a role to play. There's been a lot of finger-pointing to government recently, and then there's no question they have a significant role to play. But this is not something that government alone can solve. It's not something that the insurance industry can solve or any individual can solve. Collectively, we all have a role to play, and I think that speaks to that culture of preparedness. We will only get there if we all assume the role that is rightfully ours to play.
We've been touching primarily on the homeowners, but the business owners, there's a statistic out there that 80% of small businesses never reopen after a major disaster. So part of that process is having a disaster preparedness plan in place so that you can get up and running again. So, while we're talking primarily about homeowners and condominium owners, business owners need to be thinking about this whole process as well.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to Experts on Call on CL 650, and I'm Joanne Sutton, joined in studio today by the insurance experts featuring Patrick Magnuson from Intact Insurance, along with Andrew Tablotny of Laguerre Pelling Insurance, and Bill Adams has joined us on the phone, Vice President of the Insurance Bureau of Canada for the Pacific and Western regions. Now, we've given our listeners a lot to think about in today's show. In some cases, I'm hoping, but we didn't, but we may have caused you to think that you might need to take some immediate, well, actually, no, I want you to take immediate action from the information that we've provided you. So just in leaving the show today, what would be the best course of action for our listeners to take with this information we've provided today?
Well, check your policy. Do you have coverage, and do you know what your exposure is? Are you prepared? We talked about physical preparedness. Go to my website, www.laguerrepelling.com. I've got all kinds of links to government agencies and all kinds of sheets on checklists on what you need to do to make sure that you do survive the quake and you're able to be around for those 7 days before they come knocking on your door to see if you're still alive.
And Patrick, I don't think you can say it enough. Why should earthquake insurance be a major part of your portfolio?
It's protecting your biggest asset. So I think you mentioned it earlier. Bill mentioned it. People with insurance, they bounce back or they recover quicker from what is going to be what is going to be a devastating event. So protect your asset, protect your family, so you get back on your feet. So have a plan.
Have a plan and do it now. Don't wait. And get your head out of the sand. I said it, guys, not you. All BC residents should be taking steps to prepare for an earthquake. Exploring your earthquake insurance options should be just one of those steps, but it should be included in your plan. To learn more about your earthquake insurance options, please talk to your insurance provider. You've heard it here, straight from the experts, and you can get more information online as well at intact.ca. Gentlemen, I thank all three of you for your input today.
Thanks, Joanne.
And thank you for listening. I'm Joanne Sutton, and this is Experts on Call on CL 650.